The room is quiet, but the tension is electric. Keith Urban walks in, still smiling, still gracious, but there's something different now. He knows the world is watching. For decades, Keith was the rock in a storm, the smooth-talking country icon who never strayed far from the spotlight or from himself. But now, everything's changed. A transformation so unexpected, so shocking, that even his most loyal fans are questioning what happened. Is it reinvention, or is something deeper going on? The whispers are no longer whispers, they've exploded into headlines. Curious glances have turned into viral debates. What exactly is happening with Keith Urban? Once seen as the charming country superstar with a heart of gold and a rock-solid identity, now even the most devoted fans are left puzzled. "I wasn't raised like this at all, our girls are lucky to be learning from you, baby. I'm learning, too," Keith once said, giving us a rare, vulnerable glimpse into a transformation far deeper than just skin deep. What sparked this evolution? Why does the Keith Urban we see today feel so different from the one we thought we knew? From whispers of cosmetic changes to soul-deep reflections, questions continue to swirl, and everyone wants answers. But to understand the man Keith Urban has become, we need to start at the very beginning. Born on October 26, 1967, in Whangarei, New Zealand, Keith Lionel Urban was raised under the vast skies of Australia, far from the glitz of Nashville. It was there, amid the quiet hum of suburban life, that a star began to take shape. Long before the awards, the global fame, and the stadium lights, there was just a boy with a guitar, a relentless passion for country music, and a dream that defied borders. In a place where country wasn't even mainstream, Keith's obsession with the genre made him an outsider. But it also made him unstoppable. By 1983, a teenage Keith Urban stood under the studio lights of Australia's TV talent show New Faces, a moment that would quietly ignite a legacy. Though still young, his effortless charisma, razor-sharp guitar skills, and raw musical fire set him apart. Viewers were captivated, and industry insiders took note. This wasn't just another hopeful kid, this was a star in the making. That single appearance planted the seed for a journey that would one day take him halfway across the world. In 1991, Keith made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He packed his dreams and left for Nashville, Tennessee, the beating heart of country music. It was a risky leap, full of uncertainty and sacrifice. But Keith didn't just arrive in Nashville, he battled his way in. Navigating cultural shifts, fierce competition, and the pressure to reinvent himself, he threw everything into the music. Day by day, chord by chord, lyric by lyric, he molded himself into the artist he was destined to become. That relentless drive paid off. In 1999, nearly a decade after his bold move, Keith released his American debut album Keith Urban. It wasn't just another country record, it was a fresh, soul-stirring blend of heartland country and rock and roll swagger. His breakout single, But for the Grace of God, didn't just top charts, it told the world that Keith Urban had arrived. No longer the outsider, no longer the hopeful teen, he was now a rising force in American country music. By 2001, Keith Urban's relentless grind finally got the recognition it deserved when he was crowned top new male vocalist at the Academy of Country Music Awards. But this wasn't just an industry pat on the back, it was a resounding validation of every risk he'd taken, every lonely night in Nashville, and every note he'd poured his soul into. It marked the beginning of a meteoric rise that would redefine modern country music. The very next year, Urban unleashed Golden Road, an album that didn't just resonate with fans, it exploded. Tracks like Somebody Like You and You'll Think of Me revealed a masterful balance, country roots wrapped in radio-ready passion. It wasn't just catchy, it was personal. You'll Think of Me would go on to win Keith his first Grammy Award in 2004 for Best Male Country Vocal Performance, solidifying him not just as a performer, but as a true artist in the eyes of the world. Then came Be Here in 2005, an album that didn't just continue the streak, it elevated it. Hit after hit, the record dominated charts and earned a haul of accolades from the Country Music Association and the Academy of Country Music. By this point, Keith Urban had gone from an ambitious outsider to a genre-defining force. He wasn't just a rising star, he had become one of country music's brightest icons, and his journey was still far from over. However, 2006 would turn out to be a pivotal year for Urban on both a personal and professional level. He wed the well-known actress Nicole Kidman on June 25, 2006, in an Australian ceremony in Sydney. The merger of two well-known personalities from disparate entertainment industries, the marriage swiftly rose to prominence as one of the most talked-about celebrity partnerships. They would go on to have one of Hollywood's longest-lasting partnerships, which gave both of them a sense of security. The first of Urban and Kidman's daughters, Sunday Rose Kidman Urban, was born in 2008. Keith's life began anew after the birth, juggling the demands of his rigorous music career with fatherhood. His CD Get Closer, which was published in 2010, 2 years later, explored themes of connection, love, and family. Urban continued to display his dedication to both his craft and philanthropic causes that year by performing at a number of important award events and charity concerts. Faith Margaret, their second daughter, was born through surrogacy in 2011, adding to the family's size. Urban has frequently discussed in public how becoming a father shaped him, emotionally re-establishing him and fostering his development as a musician and a person. Keith Urban assumed a new position as an American Idol judge from 2012 to 2016. He was praised for his insightful criticism and sincere support of up-and-coming talent during his tenure, which delivered a welcome blend of comedy, honesty, and intelligence. It was a wonderful fit for his personality and gave fans a glimpse of a more caring and community-focused side of him. His 2013 album Fuse, which included singles like Cop Car and We Were Us, marked his comeback to the music industry. The project demonstrated Urban's ability to stay loyal to his roots while experimenting with new sounds. He maintained the interest of his core fan base while continuing to develop musically. Another significant year was 2016, when Urban launched a global tour with the release of Ripcord. The album reflected his desire to push artistic limits by fusing pop and electronic elements with country music. His status as a top performer was confirmed by the tour, which was a financial success. Graffiti You, a very intimate album that delves deeper into issues of love, identity, and expression, was published 2 years later in 2018. One of the greatest accolades in country music, Entertainer of the Year, was given to him at the CMA Awards the same year. It demonstrated not only his skill but also his ongoing influence on the field. In 2020, Keith Urban took over as host of the Academy of Country Music's ACM Awards, which had to change to accommodate the COVID-19 pandemic. In times of uncertainty, his constant presence during the virtual format gave fans solace and continuity. Urban kept coming up with new ideas in 2021 and 2023. He started a residency in Las Vegas, attracting audiences from all over the world to small-scale performances that were full of great music and narrative. He continued to record new songs and modify his performances to fit the constantly shifting musical landscape. Keith Urban's contentious legal action. Even with all of Keith Urban's accomplishments on the job and in his personal life, there have been some unforeseen difficulties along the way. One such instance occurred in 2007, far away from the realm of award shows, concert tours, and music charts. Urban was embroiled in a novel court battle that year that was primarily about identity in the rapidly evolving digital era, rather than music. The rights to the domain name kyturban.com, which seemed to be a simple matter, were at the heart of the dispute. Many people assumed that a famous person like Keith Urban would logically be the owner of the rights to a website with his name on it. But the truth turned out to be far more nuanced, leading to a legal dispute that garnered notice due to the unusual circumstances as well as the parties involved. The domain name at the time was Keithban. Not the Grammy-winning country musician, but a New Jersey painter called Keith Urban, coincidentally, was in charge of marketing. The domain had been used by the painter to display and market his original artwork, which had nothing to do with the music or celebrity industries. His website included details about his studio, paintings, and artistic criticism. At first glance, there was no conscious effort to mimic or profit on the musician's notoriety. Nevertheless, when the singer's fame soared, the misunderstanding caused by the name's overlap grew. When fans, reporters, and businesspeople attempted to visit the country star's official website, they were regularly taken to a page that promoted artwork rather than music. Such deception was a major problem for a public figure overseeing a brand that was becoming more and more worldwide. As the misunderstanding persisted, it became evident that something had to be done. The musician Keith Urban made the decision to take legal action to obtain the domain name. He asserted his rights under trademark law by bringing a case in federal court. His case was predicated on the idea that his name had established itself as a recognized and protected trademark, at least in the realm of entertainment, music, and commercial branding. According to the lawsuit, the painter's use of KeithBand.com violated the musician's rights and established a false association that would harm or weaken his reputation. Court filings state that the musician wanted to give himself ownership of the website in addition to preventing the painter from using it. However, from the painter's point of view, things seemed very different. He maintained that long before the musician had formally claimed the domain, he had registered it in good faith. He insisted that he had no intention of confusing the audience or making money off of the singer's fame, and that he was using the name in a proper manner to advertise his own professional endeavors. The painter stressed in court documents and public declarations that he was entitled to use his own name in business, particularly as it formed the basis of his company and his legal identity. His defense brought to light more general issues about the rights of people who share names and how to strike a balance between personal freedom and trademark law. The paparazzi knocked Nicole Kidman down. Keith Urban's 2007 battle for his digital identity provided insight into the kind of intricate offstage difficulties that accompany being a celebrity. Managing legal rights over a name, however, was only one aspect of a larger picture. Alongside his wife, actress Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban's celebrity grew, exposing the couple to yet another constant pressure, the intrusive world of photographers. Despite their well-known jobs, Keith and Nicole have both maintained a somewhat quiet life, although it has become more difficult to escape the scrutiny of their everyday lives, particularly in public places. Their interactions with the paparazzi in the 2010s, especially in Nicole's home country of Australia, escalated to a new level of intensity that tried their patience and brought up important issues like respect, safety, and limits. The public has been interested in Keith and Nicole's relationship for a long time. The media's attention has hardly left the couple since their 2006 wedding. In addition to being well-known individuals in their own right, they symbolized the merging of two international artists from disparate artistic fields, music and film. The couple became the focus of tabloids and gossip sections, even though fans loved their love story and frequently cheered for their happiness. A near-constant desire for pictures and intimate details resulted from the public's interest with their existence together. And this focus frequently went much beyond formal occasions and red carpets. Rather, it accompanied them on daily errands, restaurant trips, private holidays, and airports. Moments that Keith and Nicole frequently found themselves in the harsh limelight, but which most people take for granted. In places like Sydney and Melbourne, where Keith is well recognized and Nicole is adored, paparazzi frequently gathered for their public appearances. The photographers would occasionally go to great lengths to get their images because they were keen to document unguarded moments. The scenes might get chaotic very soon. Numerous cameras flashed in quick succession, dozens of lenses were trained on the couple, and personal space was frequently disregarded. Some photographers stayed respectfully away, while others didn't. The two eventually came across a trend of more hostile conduct from some people who saw boundaries as nothing more than barriers to the next exclusive picture. Both Keith and Nicole experienced severe emotional and psychological stress as a result of these incidents, which ranged from verbal abuse to extremely close encounters. Simple things like meeting a buddy or entering a building frequently turned into awkward or even unpleasant situations. 2013 saw the most well-known of these occurrences. And it took place on the busy, fast-paced streets of New York City, not in Australia. This day, Nicole Kidman had just left a fashion event and was making her way to her hotel. Pedestrians, bystanders, and, as usual, paparazzi following to record her departure crowded the pavement. One of them was a photographer on a bicycle who allegedly rushed near her on the sidewalk rather than from a safe distance in an attempt to get a picture. Nicole was knocked to the ground by the paparazzo's direct collision with her at a startling and unexpected moment. She pounded the pavement for a moment after falling backward. The experience was startling and humiliating, a clear physical reminder of how easily the line between photography and danger may be crossed, even though she was not gravely hurt. The fall was uncomfortable and painful for Nicole. However, the incident touched a deeper chord with Keith Urban, who was not with her at the time but learned about it shortly after. It was no longer about gossip or flashy cameras. It was about safety, the invasion of privacy, and the needless danger of continuous exposure. The story garnered headlines in major media outlets in the immediate aftermath. The picture of a well-known actress being thrown to the ground by an overzealous photographer raised questions about the methods employed by some paparazzi. The incident provoked concerns about celebrity culture, consent, and the boundaries of public access outside of the entertainment industry. Keith, who is renowned for being calm and considerate, answered clearly and with compassion. He spoke out about the incident in public, expressing his shock at what had transpired and stressing the importance of treating everyone with fundamental human decency, regardless of their position. He refrained from snapping or going on irate outbursts. His message was composed, direct, and based on the idea that one's safety and dignity should never be sacrificed for the sake of a picture. Many people were moved by Keith's response because they could hear the voice of someone who was fed up with seeing his loved ones become targets. He wasn't doing this to stay out of the spotlight. It was about defining the boundary between attention and irresponsibility. Nicole's contentious interference with Keith. It's possible that the 2013 Nicole Kidman paparazzi incident exposed the outside pressures Keith Urban and his wife still experience as well-known individuals. However, there have also been intensely private conflicts fought in secret. Conflicts about which the public was only made aware after the fact. One of the most important and defining of those was an event that happened months after they had exchanged vows, much earlier in their marriage. Shortly after what many believed to be the start of a picture-perfect marriage, Nicole Kidman had to face the terrible truth about the man she loved in 2006. She was aware that something urgent and definite needed to be done since Keith Urban had relapsed into substance usage. Keith and Nicole had only been married for 4 months at that point. The wedding, which brought together two well-known artists and represented a hopeful new chapter in their lives, was a nationally publicized event in Sydney, Australia. Their love seemed bright and promising to the outer world. Fans were enthralled with the narrative of the Oscar-winning actress and the country music sensation. Despite coming from quite different origins, two prosperous people had managed to find one another. They appeared to be a power couple that would always be happy, balanced, and together. However, a far more agonizing reality was taking place behind the public smiles, the glitzy gatherings, and the affectionate interviews. One that served as a reminder to them both that love, no matter how powerful, must occasionally face harsh realities. Before he discovered recovery, Keith Urban had previously been honest about his battles with addiction and the toll it had taken on his life and career. He had gained respect for his candor, and for a while it seemed he had moved on from that phase of his life. However, addiction is a lifelong struggle, and he subtly relapsed into old behaviors during the early years of their marriage. At first, it was not readily apparent to the general public or even to those in his local vicinity. Nicole Kidman, however, was aware of the changes and felt a strong bond with her husband. She was painfully confident that the man she had recently married was heading into trouble since she had seen the warning signs. Nicole took decisive action instead of waiting for the situation to worsen or hoping that the relapse will go away on its own. She organized an intervention. It was an act that needed deep love, guts, and clarity. It's never easy to stage an intervention, particularly when feelings are strong and there's a chance of alienating someone. However, Nicole saw the seriousness of the situation. She was worried about more than simply keeping their marriage intact. Keith needed to be saved. She approached the matter head-on with a composed determination that betrayed genuine concern rather than condemnation. There was no ultimatum. It served as a lifeline. Keith agreed to get therapy and accepted the intervention. He checked into the Betty Ford Center, which is renowned for treating people with addiction and substance misuse and is one of the most reputable rehabilitation centers in the U.S. Keith had to temporarily leave everything, his job, his responsibilities, and the spotlight, but it was a brave and admirable move. Additionally, it meant exposing himself to a process that would require sincerity, responsibility, and serious emotional toil. Keith ends Nicole Kidman interview. The narrative of. Only a few months into her marriage, Nicole Kidman made a daring intervention in 2006. Was a private conflict with Keith Urban that revealed the depth of her dedication as well as the transformational potential of love and support. It was one of several instances that demonstrated how gravely Keith and Nicole price barriers, particularly when it comes to protecting one another from personal or public damage. As their relationship evolved, so did their focus of the way invasive or beside the point public interest can be. Even as they have got both grow to be greater secure navigating reputation through the years, there have nonetheless been moments whilst the line among curiosity and disregard has been unmistakably crossed. One such second passed off in a radio interview that speedy became uncomfortable and then ended. After an intrusive question about Nicole Kidman's film roles stuck Keith Urban off guard. The incident spread out during what became predicted to be a preferred promotional look. Keith became on air with a radio host doing what many artists often do, talking about his track, modern initiatives, and personal reflections in a mild, conversational tone. But partway through the dialogue, the mood shifted. The host, possibly aiming for a second of humor or controversy, asked Keith a query that hit a nerve. How he felt looking Nicole perform in romantic or intimate love scenes in her movies. For the majority, the sort of question would be considered awkward at best, invasive at worst. However, for a person like Keith, who is deeply respectful of his wife's career and additionally very protective in their personal lifestyles, the observation wasn't simply beside the point. It crossed a non-public line. In preference to brush it off with a comic story or pressured politeness, Keith City made a decision that spoke volumes. He all at once ended the interview. His response wasn't explosive or indignant. It became calm, clear, and very last. The message became unmistakable. Positive topics had been off limits, and he wasn't going to play alongside just to hold the communication flowing. In doing so, Keith verified the equal kind of boundary putting that has described a whole lot of his and Nicole's public life. For a couple who have weathered media storms and public scrutiny, the incident strengthened their shared stance. Their dating is not for public leisure, in particular while it includes disrespect or pointless intrusion. To some, it may have regarded like an overreaction. After all, celebrities are often asked uncomfortable questions, and many pick to deflect or stay away from them with humor. But for Keith, the moment turned into approximately extra than simply an awkward question. It became about recognize. It became approximately drawing a clean distinction between real hobby and sensationalism, among interest and carelessness. His decision to reduce the interview short turned into his manner of putting forward control in a scenario that had veered into unacceptable territory. This wasn't the primary time Keith had proven that form of protectiveness, nor would it be the ultimate. His relationship with Nicole has usually blanketed a sturdy element of mutual protection, status up for each different whilst public statement will become inappropriate or invasive. At the same time as they have got each remained gracious within the face of attention, they've also learned how to put into effect limitations whilst essential. This technique isn't always about being secretive or standoffish. It's approximately preserving dignity both in my opinion and as a pair. Keith's conflict with addiction and his transformation. Keith City's track profession has been observed with the aid of a darker, deeply private battle, an inner warfare that has fashioned an awful lot of his adventure. Throughout the past 90s and early 2000s, Keith found himself caught inside the grip of alcohol and cocaine addiction. His flow to Nashville, coupled with early career pressures and a look for validation, driven him right into a risky cycle of substance use. In his own phrases, the lower backstop of the nines changed into a chaotic time, marked via binge ingesting and drug use that left him emotionally and bodily drained. He is considering the fact that admitted that his drug of desire was cocaine, and his consuming frequently spiraled into dangerous territory. The lifestyle that got here along with his rising repute most effective delivered fuel to the fire. Keith's first critical step closer to healing came in 1998 whilst he voluntarily checked himself into a rehabilitation center in Nashville. At that point, the symptoms of dependency had ended up simple. He became conscious that things were getting out of manage and he took that possibility to or seeking for assist. However, as is regularly the case with dependency, recuperation wasn't a directly course. Despite the fact that the 1998 rehab stint gave him a much-needed pause, it failed to absolutely resolve the deeper troubles fueling his substance use. Through the years, he drifted far from this system and finally relapsed. The pressure of preserving a success-tuned profession did not help. Keith was mountain climbing the charts, incomes awards, and constructing his fan base. However, backstage, his conflict with addiction remained unresolved. By the point he married Nicole Kidman in 2006, many assumed he had put his struggles in the back of him. But simply 4 months into their marriage, Keith relapsed once more. The moment was a AA00333992A1424449A037E2560BF2 for both him and Nicole. She recognized the seriousness of the situation and staged an intervention, an act of love and braveness that became a pivotal turning point of their relationship. Keith later contemplated on that moment with great gratitude. He defined Nicole's intervention now not as an ultimatum, however as a lifeline. She had drawn a line out of love, now not judgment, and he knew it changed into time to behave. He as soon as said he became very, very blessed to have had her step in while she did. This time he entered the Betty Ford Center in California, a place known for its powerful, established method to recuperation. He stayed there for several months, specializing in not simply physical detox, but the emotional and mental healing essential for lengthy time period sobriety. What accompanied became a sluggish, planned method of rebuilding. Keith returned from Remedy with a brand new angle. He wasn't simply easy. He changed into clean approximately what needed to exchange in his lifestyles and the way he might preserve his sobriety. He re-engaged together with his aid systems, which includes 12-step applications, Remedy, and a non-public dedication to live grounded. This wasn't approximately salvaging a career or repairing in picture. It changed into approximately reclaiming his existence. He admitted that previous attempts at restoration hadn't stuck due to the fact he hadn't been fully prepared. However now, with Nicole's help and his personal solve, he was ultimately capable of make lasting changes. Keith's openness approximately his addiction has also become a critical part of his public photo. Not because he is seeking to benefit sympathy, but because he knows what number of human beings are silently dealing with the equal conflict. He's spoken truly in interviews approximately how addiction affected no longer simplest his health and profession, however his capability to like and consider himself. There may be no glamorizing it, just a simple spoken acknowledgement that addiction is a disease, no longer a failure of man or woman. And that message has resonated deeply with fans, many of whom see his adventure as a reminder that restoration isn't only feasible, however really worth every effort. Over time, Keith's dedication to sobriety has remained strong. It's prompted his relationships, his music, and his experience of cause. He's credited his wife for being a consistent anchor, saying that she gave him a second threat at life. But he's also given himself credit wherein it is due. He made the decision to get clean, to stay easy, and to maintain doing the work long after the headlines faded. That kind of consistency would not come effortlessly, particularly beneath the spotlight of fame. Keith City's transformation is turning heads, not because of scandal, however because of how far he has come. He's persevered to launch chart-topping albums, carry out to sold-out crowds, and function a mentor to aspiring musicians. However, perhaps greater importantly, he has carried out all of it even as remaining grounded in his healing. He not hides from the beyond, nor does he let it outline him. Instead, he makes use of it as a foundation, evidence of what he has overcome and what he nevertheless stands for.